Yo, what is up, guys? Back here with another video. Today we're going to be highlighting Ditto. So you guys might have come for the interesting thumbnail and title we had, and definitely gonna want to make sure I'm not disappointing you guys. So Ditto is a very interesting mod in the format. It's actually found a bit of viability, I think, through the use of restricted Pokemon and through the lack of Dynamax. Ditto originally struggled, I think, with a bit because of Dynamax, and it was actually pretty good in previous formats, so it's kind of seen a little bit of a resurgence back to actually being semi-useful. So it's a little bit shorter of a mon, I think, to explain through. So what I wanted to do was maybe talk about some common compositions that would utilize Ditto, just to kind of give you guys a run through of that. But first, obviously, we're going to be talking about the individual mon itself and kind of what it does for a team, etc. So starting with Ditto, right? Ditto is basically always going to be taking advantage of its ability Imposter. Its most common move is Transform, but in reality that doesn't matter. Its ability is really what matters. You basically copy your opponent's form. So it really copies the opposing Mon, and it copies their stat changes, right? So let's say there's a +2 Xerneas on the other side. You're going to copy that stat boost, and you're going to copy that stat boost, and you're going to copy that mon. The only drawback is that you're going to have less HP because Ditto usually has less HP. So Ditto, I believe, has an HP stat of 155. So 155, obviously, HP stat isn't exactly the craziest, right? So it's not going to be that bulky, but it usually does enough for what it wants to do. Also, guys, before I continue going to this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and let me know what kind of Pokemon you'd like to see me cover next, what videos you guys would like to see next, and also, as well, make sure to check out the coaching and the Patreon down below. It all supports me. And make sure to check out the Twitch, where we usually stream with stuff, kind of talk about mons, all that stuff. But anyways, looking at Ditto, I guess beyond that, right? It's kind of comes down to a couple of things where you can really see its utility. Ditto is really good at copying stuff like Xerneas. Able to copy Xerneas boosts, obviously, go for strong attacks in terms of being able to spam Xerneas' own Moonblast against it. Especially utilizing Choice Scarf allows you to outspeed the things you copy, which is usually very nice. And also, too, you can copy stuff like Calyrex, right? And then steal its Astral Barrage and just go for an Astral Barrage yourself. And, like, stuff like that can be really, like, threatening. And it can really create huge problems for your opponent. So stuff like that's really nice for the team in general. Along with that, too, Ditto kind of offers a just kind of team preview pressure, because it's going to make your opponent have to be a little bit more conscious about how they kind of set up a mon that they want to stat boost, or kind of really like power through the opposing team, right? Because if you set up a Xerneas and you let it get weakened early on in the game, then Ditto can just come in and clean up. And you kind of see where Ditto can actually function, and it's usually with restricteds that don't have as much of a power level, besides stuff like Calyrex, or lack kind of defensive pivoting. Calyrex is the example of that. But we're going to be going through the individual restricteds and why it was used. So the reason why I have Lunala listed here is because, if you guys do not know, Marco Fierro, a very good Italian player, actually had used Ditto paired with Lunala to do well in a most recent, or one of the more recent Battle Frontier tournaments. Also, too, just makes a lot of sense. Lunala doesn't really have too much to do with Xerneas. Obviously, he can go for its own Moongeist Beams, but it's not really doing that much damage. Ditto able to copy opposing Xerneas, steal the boost, and kind of go and put on some pressure with Moonblast. Really just pressure the opponent into taking extra damage from their own Xerneas Moonblast, basically. The nice thing as well is that you can potentially run something like Red Card on Ditto or Citrus Berry, which gives you a bit of an edge against the thing you're transforming into. So if you're running something like Citrus Berry, obviously it can give you a little bit of health to kind of edge out your opponent in a damage trade. And then if you're running something like Red Card, that's specifically good versus Xerneas, where what you can do is you can copy the Xerneas boost, use your Red Card to phase the opposing Xerneas out when they hit you, and then you can obviously roll with your own Xerneas. So it's a really cool option that you have. Typically, you want to use Scarf the most, I think, out of everything, just because it puts on the most pressure. But obviously, it's also pretty viable to maybe take advantage of Red Card or Citrus Berry as well to give you the edge in some matchups, right? So that pretty much covers Ditto's role on Lunala teams and just Ditto in general. But now we can go to Shadow Rider. So for Shadow Rider, usually it really benefits as being a more something to copy the restricteds that typically give Calyrex a little more trouble. So something I've seen a lot is Ditto utilized to really copy stuff like Yveltal or other things that can annoy Ditto, so you can use it against the opponent's team, or maybe copy a restricted that you don't want to get copied. So for example, Xerneas really applies here. As I mentioned, restrictors that have trouble dealing with Xerneas actually really like Ditto on it, because it kind of gives you a good option to shut down Xerneas stuff, right? So it's pretty straightforward there. The nice thing as well too, I think, with Ditto and Calyrex, especially if you copy the opposing mon and it's like set up or threatening, you're basically able to spam like Astral Barrage and like attacks with like the Choice Scarf Ditto, copying whatever. And you can even swap in Ditto maybe to like steal Incineroar's form to get Intimidate, or go for a fake out. So it gives you a lot of options there, which I think is like super super nice. But yeah, I think that's the main thing there. And then if we look at the Ditto Ho-Oh pairing, typically that one's also a little bit more of a defensive pairing, but also kind of doubles up as an offensive pairing. You could probably steal like a more offensive restricted with that Ditto pairing and kind of put yourself in a better position to really put out damage against your opponent, right? Ho is one of those legendaries that are a little bit bulkier and kind of lacks a lot more damage output, so Ditto kind of compensates for that fact. So now we can actually go into the individual like team compositions, kind of how it would be utilized. So typically, I'll just give you an example here. Let's just say we're looking at Lunala, for example, right? So Marco Fiero's team that he utilized actually had Serena, Lunala, Incineroar, Finny, and then it had Ditto, and then it had Stack Attacka. So you might be like, okay, well, you know, Ditto's here, but like, what exactly does it do? So Marco basically had the intention of setting Trick Room for the stack, putting it in a position where he was obviously able to sweep. But in versus some matchups, he needed something that wasn't stacked because it wouldn't be good versus the other partners, right? Because what's the point of bringing Stack Attack as like a check for Xerneas or something if it's getting pressured by all of his partners or it doesn't have much it can do? So Ditto kind of allows you to copy the annoying partners. This team also struggles with Amoonguss a little bit, so actually you can copy opposing Amoonguss to kind of give your opponent some trouble. Also, too, into Zacian matchups, copying the opposing Zacian to put on pressure is actually really nice, because then you have a strong Behemoth Blade paired with like your Lunala's Moongeist Beams or your Meteor Beams. Really just lets you put pressure on the opponent's team. So that's kind of how it makes sense to be utilized with Lunala. Pretty much stealing it, utilizing Scarf to really put on pressure next to Lunala, which is otherwise a little bit less of a damaging restricted. So now we're going to go into its use on Calyrex Shadow Rider teams. I see this typically used more so on like Tailwind Calyrex Shadow teams. I believe there's one in like top 5 right now on Showdown that's using it. But yeah, so typically what they'll want to do is have stuff like Whimsicott and Ditto. Basically, the main reason why you want to use this core is because you typically have a fast mode, right? And you don't really have much to adjust for like slow Tricker Mons. So what you can do potentially with Ditto, even being Citrus Berry or a red card, is potentially copy the opposing Pokemon's forms and then take advantage of it to beat them at their own game, pretty much. So that's like something that's super useful. Excuse me. And can be very helpful for your game plans because it gives you something that can directly copy something that might give you a little more trouble. So I think it's something really cool. Another thing too that I think could be really cute, especially if Ditto's like your Trickermancer, is maybe having something like Iron Ball, because it can help you underspeed the opponent's Trickermon. But I think majority of the time what you're going to be aiming for is to be having the Ditto more as like a way to take advantage of Trickermon if it comes up, but also be able to take advantage of maybe another Mon's boost at the same time, right? So kind of a neutral item maybe to support that. Citrus Berry, I think, being the best one. But yeah. So I think that makes the most sense on this team. You can also justify red card to kind of help you deal with your Xerneas matchup. It really depends on the kind of Calyrex team you're running, but that's typically how it's paired. And then for the final pairing that Ditto's typically paired with Ho-Oh. So Ho-Oh's kind of declined a little bit in usage as of late. But the nice thing with Ho-Oh is Ho-Oh can kind of fall into that trap of being a little too passive. So Ditto kind of allows you to have another restricted slot to really take advantage of the offensive restrictions in the format, right? So obviously you can take advantage of Ho-Oh's bulk, ability to reposition, but then you can also swap in Ditto, potentially copy something like a Zacian, right? Or something else that can put out a little more damage and then pair that next to your Ho-Oh, and it becomes a lot more threatening. So I think Ho-Oh has a decent amount of potential this format, but I think it really needs to be explored more with Ditto because Ditto kind of gives it a bit more compensation for that lack of damage it carries itself, right? And that's the main thing that's really going to benefit you there. So I'd say that overall, these are the main restricted partners that benefit Ditto. Oh my god, excuse me. But, yeah. I just think it's, like, super, super important to kind of recognize Ditto's usage with those specifically, and I think that those are the main mons that are really going to assist it. But, hopefully this helped you guys out. I usually try to be very concise with my guides. I felt like it would be helpful for this specific video because Ditto obviously doesn't have as much sets to go through to give you guys a bit more details on the actual compositions that Ditto would want to be paired with, because then it helps you kind of contextualize it a little bit more. If you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure to let me know in the comments. As always, make sure to let me know what Pokemon you'd like to see me break down next. And also make sure to support all the links down below the Patreon, the coaching, everything. Like, I really put a lot of effort into all my content, especially streaming as well on Twitch. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. We actually have some people dropping by from the YouTube already in there, which is super cool. But thank you guys again for all the support, as usual. I really appreciate it, and I'm always looking forward to making the next video, kind of teaching you guys something new. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys again for supporting the videos, and catch you in the next video. Peace.